Everything feels heavy right now. Maybe it's the literal weight of the light fading outside our windows as we head into the darker months. Or maybe it's the weight of the world, the mayhem we call the news, the politics, the economy, the constant sense that everything is on fire and we're just supposed to keep going like it's all okay. Or maybe for you, it's neither of those things. Maybe your personal world is heavy, a relationship that's circling the drain and you don't know how to stop it. Or a job that's sucking the marrow out of your bones. Grief that sits on your chest every morning. Anxiety that's running on a loop you can't shut off. A version of yourself you're trying to hold together with duct tape, sheer willpower and grit. And here's what's nobody's saying out loud. We're close to breaking. Not in some dramatic, catastrophic way, but in that quiet way where one more thing, one more disappointment, one more demand, one more day of pushing through might be the thing that finally cracks our foundation. I know this because I'm watching it happen. I'm watching it happen to the people I love. I'm watching myself struggle as I'm wondering if everyone's just too exhausted to care right now. And I'm using every tool I have just to keep showing up. Everything feels heavy. And if you're waiting for somebody to tell you that it's okay to acknowledge, this is me telling you, it's not just okay, it's necessary. And here's something else I need you to hear. What you're feeling right now, it's not a sign that something's wrong with you. It's not evidence that you're broken or weak or failing at life. Feeling heavy right now, feeling close to breaking, is actually a completely healthy response to what's happening in the world and in your life. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it is designed to do. It's responding to real overwhelm with real sensations. And I'd like to make it very clear that there's a huge difference between breaking and being broken. And I fundamentally believe that none of us are broken. There is so much chaos, so much instability, so much that's actually really bloody hard right now. To feel the weight of that? That's not dysfunction. That's your system accurately reading the room. The problem isn't that you're feeling this way. The problem is that we live in a culture that tells us to ignore it, to push through, to fix ourselves, to pretend. You're not too sensitive. You're not overreacting. You're having a human response to genuinely difficult circumstances, and that response deserves acknowledgement, not judgment, and not criticism. Because here's what the wellness industry most likely won't tell you. You cannot positive think or positive talk your way out of the heaviness. You cannot hack your way through a season that demands you slow down and build differently. You cannot force yourself through when your foundation is already cracking. And for those of us who believe in vibration, you also can't shift your vibration all at once. It happens gradually. But here's what you can do. You can build a foundation strong enough to hold you when everything else feels like it's crumbling. Not someday, not when things get lighter, now. Before you break, And that's what this episode is about. And I know what you're thinking. Mental fitness, self-love, right now, when I'm barely surviving, when the anxiety around my finances is making me feel like I want to throw up, when I have 17 things on my to-do list and I'm already behind, when the world is literally falling apart and I'm supposed to focus on myself? Yes, especially now, exactly now, because this moment when everything feels too heavy, when survival mode feels like your only option, this is when your mental fitness and your relationship with yourself become non-negotiable, not indulgent, not optional, but essential. Yes, I said essential. This isn't about adding one more thing to your overwhelm. This is about building the foundation that keeps you from shattering. Because I know that when I shatter, I'm the one who has to put those pieces back together. Nobody else. And it's bloody hard. Today we're going to talk about building your mental fitness foundation for the seasons where everything feels hard. The literal winter that's coming, the metaphorical winters, the seasons of life that can last a day, a month, a decade, where just getting through the day asks more of us than we think we have. I'm not going to give you tiny tools today. I'm going to give you foundational practices, the kind that hold you when you can't hold yourself, the kind that become your foundation where everything else is shifting. Because you matter too much to break. Hear me. You matter. With all the messiness and the anxiety, you matter. And because I believe, even on my hardest days, that we can do this, we can build differently, we can prepare for heaviness without denying it or being destroyed by it. Stay with me. If you felt that recognition in your body when I said everything feels heavy, this is the conversation we need to have right now before the weight becomes too much. Let's get into it. I'd like to ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. Actually, I want you to feel this. Where are you at right now? No, I mean, where are you really at? When was the last time you actually stopped and checked in with yourself? Not the version you show the world, not the I'm fine you say automatically when someone asks, but the real truth of how you're doing. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to acknowledge what you're actually feeling without immediately trying to fix it, judge it, or push it away? That's what we're doing today. We're checking in, we're acknowledging, and then we're building something that can hold you. All of that, and I haven't even said hello yet. Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we do things differently. No editing, no polishing, no studio magic, just honest conversations that stay exactly as they happened. And today's conversation, it's one we need to have. Before we get going here, I'd like you to share this episode. Share it with the people who came to mind when I said, everything feels heavy. The friend who's barely holding it together. The colleague who's running on fumes, the family member who keeps saying they're fine, but you know they're not. Share it with those people, because that's how we build something bigger than ourselves. One honest conversation at a time. Today I'm sharing 3 foundational practices, the kind that become your foundation where everything else is falling apart. These aren't quick fixes. They're not hacks. Oh my, everyone seems to love a hack. These are foundations that can hold you when nothing else can. The first foundational practice is awareness without judgment. And I want to be really clear about what this means, because many of us use awareness as a weapon against ourselves. Awareness without judgment means seeing clearly what is actually happening in your body, in your mind, in your life, without immediately making it something about you, without turning it into evidence that you're failing or broken or doing it wrong, without criticizing yourself and finding all the reasons you are wrong for being where you are. When everything feels heavy, your gut is probably to either ignore it completely, push it away, or judge yourself for feeling it. Or one of my personal favorites is to spiral into, what's wrong with me? Why can I not handle this? Everyone else seems fine. Both of those responses, they're not awareness, they're avoidance and self-criticism. Real awareness looks like this. Everything feels heavy right now. My chest is tight. My energy is low. I'm struggling. That's what's true. Full stop. No adding, and that means I'm weak, or I should be better at this by now. Come on already. Just, this is what's happening. Here's why this matters when you're close to breaking. You cannot build a foundation on denial, and you cannot build a foundation on criticism. If you're pretending everything is fine when it's not, you're building on quicksand. If you're beating yourself up for struggling, you're actively undermining your own foundation. Awareness without judgment is the foundation. It's saying, I see what's real, and what's real doesn't make me bad or wrong or a failure. Now, here's the trap most people fall into. They think if they acknowledge how heavy everything feels, they'll get stuck there. They think awareness means wallowing in self-pity or giving up or making it worse. But the opposite is true. When you acknowledge what's real without judgment, you give yourself the information you need to respond. You stop wasting energy on pretending or self-criticism, and you actually use that energy to build something that holds you. It allows you the space to move forward. Awareness without judgment is actually the first act of self-love. It's saying, I see you. I see how hard this is, and you're not wrong for feeling this way. So here's how you practice this. Start with what I call the body check-in, and you can do this right now listening to me. Take a breath, just one, and now ask yourself, what am I actually feeling in my body right in this moment? Not what you think you should feel, Not what you felt yesterday or what you might feel tomorrow. Right now. Maybe your shoulders are up visiting your ears. They're so tense. Maybe your jaw is clenched. Maybe there's tightness in your chest or heaviness in your stomach. Maybe you feel numb. Maybe you feel nothing at all. Whatever it is, just notice it. Name it if you can. My shoulders are tight. My chest is heavy. I feel exhausted. Naming the feeling is a powerful part of the process. And here's the critical part. After you name it, add this phrase. And that makes sense. My shoulders are tight, and that makes sense. Everything feels heavy, and that makes sense. That little phrase, and that makes sense, is how you practice awareness without judgment. It's how you acknowledge what's real without making it mean you're wrong. Because of course your shoulders are tight. Of course everything feels heavy. Look at what's happening in the world. Look at what you're carrying. Look at what you're trying to manage. Your body's response makes perfect sense. You can do this body check-in anytime. First thing in the morning, middle of the day when you feel yourself starting to crack. Before bed. It takes 30 seconds or less. You're not trying to fix anything in this moment. You're not trying to make the heaviness go away. You're just practicing seeing what's real and meeting it with understanding instead of judgment. That's awareness without judgment, and it's the foundation everything else is built on. Now, awareness alone isn't enough, because once you see what's real, you'll need to be willing to do something about it, even something small. Which brings us to the second foundational practice. And that is the willingness to make one small shift. Not an epic transformation, not a complete overhaul of your life, not the dramatic before and after that social media has convinced you is the only kind of change that matters. One small shift. And I need to talk about this for a moment because we are living in a culture that has completely messed up our understanding of what meaningful change looks like. Social media shows us the epic pivots. The person who quit their corporate job and moved to Bali and is making 7 figures. The complete life reinvention in 90 days. The dramatic testimony that makes you think, well, if I'm not doing that, then what I'm doing doesn't count. And I am so guilty of this one because, oh, do I love an epic transformation. Or let me say it better. I crave epic transformations, sometimes like a drug. But I have learned better. That comparison, that toxic measuring of your small, hard-won shifts against someone else's carefully curated and highly polished and edited highlight reel, it destroys your willingness to take the next step. It paralyzes you and keeps you stuck because if it's not epic, we dismiss it. If it's not social media material, we tell ourselves it won't make an ounce of difference. So we do nothing. We stay stuck. We wait for the perfect moment or the perfect energy or the perfect plan to make the big change. And meanwhile, we break, slowly, quietly, because we needed the small shift and we talked ourselves out of it. We convinced ourselves it wasn't enough. So why bother? Too small to make a difference. Here's what I know after decades of doing this work and from my own life. Small shifts create momentum. They get us moving. Epic shifts most often create failure and comparison. There are some people who have successful epic shifts, but that is very rare, and often there is much more to it than we are led to believe. When everything feels too heavy to carry, you do not need a dramatic transformation. You only need one tiny movement that proves to yourself that you are not completely powerless. One small action that says, I'm still here, I'm still trying, I still matter. That's what builds a foundation, not the epic pivot. The small, consistent, unglamorous, unpolished, clumsy choice to move 1 degree in a different direction. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water when you wake up instead of immediately checking your phone. Maybe it's stepping outside for 2 minutes to feel the air on your face. Maybe it's saying no to one more thing on your to-do list instead of forcing yourself through all of it. Maybe it's texting one friend instead of isolating completely. These feel like nothing, right? They feel too small to matter. But here's a truth. The smallest shift breaks the paralysis. It interrupts the pattern of heaviness and helplessness. It creates a crack in the wall you've been hitting your head against. And that crack is where the light comes in. Yes, that is where it all begins. Momentum builds from there. Not because small shifts magically solve everything, but because they prove something to your nervous system. That you can still move, that you still have agency. You're not as stuck as you think you are. So here's how you practice this. I invite you to identify one small shift you can make today, not tomorrow, not when things get lighter, today. And I'm going to be very specific about what makes a shift small enough. It should take less than a few minutes. It should not require any special equipment or preparation. It should be so doable that you can't talk yourself out of it. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do in the next hour that would be taking care of myself? Not, what should I do, or what would a healthy person do? What can you do right now with the energy, the time, and the resources you actually have? Maybe it's putting your hand on your heart and taking 3 deep breaths. Maybe it's eating something, anything, if you've been running on empty. Maybe it's closing your eyes for 60 seconds. Sending the text that says, I'm struggling today. Maybe it's moving your body for 2 minutes, stretching, walking. Walk on the spot if you have to. Maybe it's putting on a song that makes you feel something other than heavy. Pick one, anyone. Do it. Notice that you did it. Make it your own. That's it. That's the practice. You're not trying to fix everything. You're not trying to transform your entire life. You are proving to yourself that you can still take one step, that you still have choice, that small shifts do count. It matters way, way more than you may think at first. And then tomorrow, you do it again. Maybe the same small shift, maybe a different one, but keep moving, one small degree at a time. And give yourself the space to do it differently tomorrow, if that's what you need, because you will be different tomorrow than you are today. Adjust. Just keep moving, because that's how you build a foundation when everything feels heavy. Not through epic transformation, but through small, consistent shifts that accumulate into something solid. But here's the thing about making these shifts. They only stick if you do them with compassion, not criticism and judgment, which is why the third foundational practice might be the most important one. The third practice is do the work with self-compassion. You can do all the right things for your mental fitness and still hurt yourself in the process. You can practice awareness. You can make small shifts. You can show up every single day. But if you're doing it with self-criticism, with judgment, with the inner voice that says, you should be better at this by now, or why is this so hard for you, or everyone else has this figured out, enough already. If you're doing that, you're not building a foundation. You're just finding a more sophisticated way to be cruel to yourself. Here's what I've learned. You cannot hate yourself into wholeness. You cannot bully yourself into better mental fitness. You cannot criticize your way to healing. You cannot judge yourself into love. Self-criticism doesn't work. It never has. It never will. What works is self-compassion. Showing up for yourself with the same kindness you would show someone you deeply love who's struggling. Think about it. If your best friend came to you and said, everything feels too heavy. I'm barely holding it together. I don't know how to keep going. Would you say, well, you should be handling this better. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just push through like everyone else? Of course you wouldn't. You'd be horrified if someone spoke to your friend that way. You'd probably put your arms around your friend. You'd say, I see how hard this is. You're doing the best you can. It makes sense that you're struggling. Let's figure this out together. That's the voice you need to practice with yourself. That's self-compassion. It's not letting yourself off the hook. It's not making excuses. It's not being a slacker and saying, well, I don't have to try because life is hard. It's saying, I'm trying so hard and life is hard, and both of those things can be true at the same time. Self-compassion is what turns these practices from obligations into acts of love. It's what makes them sustainable instead of just one more thing you're failing at. Because here's what happens when you practice awareness without judgment. Make small shifts and do it all with self-compassion. You start to build trust with yourself. You start to believe that you're on your own side. You start to internalize the truth that you are worth showing up for, even when, especially when, everything feels heavy. And that trust, that belief, that internalized worth, that's your foundation right there. That's what holds you when nothing else can. So here's how you practice this. Start paying attention to your self-talk, especially in the moments where you're struggling and when you didn't do the thing you intended to do, or when everything feels like too much. What's that voice in your head saying? Is it harsh, critical, comparing you to others, telling you you're not enough, you'll never get it right, you'll never amount to anything worthwhile? When you catch that voice, and you will, because we all have it, and some days it is so bloody loud, I want you to practice something I call the friend filter. Ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then don't say it to yourself. Instead, pause, take a breath, and ask, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Would I say, you're doing the best you can with what you have right now? It's okay. This is hard. Hard things are allowed to be hard. You just have to keep showing up. Would you say, I'm proud of you for trying, especially when it feels impossible? Say that to yourself instead, out loud if you can. Put your hand on your heart if it helps. Making contact with your body is really powerful. At first, it will feel awkward, cringe, fake even. Your brain will tell you that you don't deserve compassion, that you need to be harder on yourself to change. Your brain is wrong, and it's only wrong because we've trained it that way. Self-compassion isn't soft. It is not weak. It's actually the strongest thing you can practice because it's the only thing that creates lasting change. So practice the friend filter every day, multiple times a day when everything feels heavy. Catch that harsh voice. Ask if you'd say that to a friend and replace it with what you would say instead. That's how you do this work with self-compassion. That's how you build a foundation that's rooted in love, not fear. And here's something I want you to understand about self-compassion. It builds self-love, and that's where we're headed. Self-love. True, deep, unshakable self-love that doesn't depend on your productivity, your achievements, or how well you're holding it together. But we don't get there overnight. Especially if you've been unkind to yourself for years or decades. Especially if the harsh voice has been your constant companion for so long that it now feels like the truth. We get there a step at a time. The same way we talked about small shifts mattering, self-compassion, and eventually true self-love. They're not destinations you arrive at and you're done. They're practices, daily practices, and they look different on different days because life is constantly in motion, and so are we, even when it feels like we're standing still. Some days, self-compassion looks like speaking to yourself gently. Other days, it looks like letting yourself rest without guilt. Some days, it's asking for help. Other days, it's saying no to protect your energy. This practice adapts. You adapt. And slowly, over time, the compassion you're practicing becomes the love you're living. It starts here, today, with one small moment of choosing kindness over criticism, with catching the harsh voice and replacing it with the voice of a friend. That's how you build self-love. Not through epic declarations or perfect execution, but through small, consistent acts of compassion that accumulate into something unbreakable. Those are your 3 foundational practices. Awareness without judgment. Willingness to make one small shift. And doing the work with self-compassion. These practices work together. Awareness shows you what's real. Willingness moves you forward. Compassion makes it sustainable and builds the self-love that holds you through everything. You don't have to do them perfectly. There is no such thing. Do them imperfectly, clumsily. It doesn't matter. Just keep doing them. And you don't have to master them before they start helping you. You just have to start. Because here's what I want you to know. When everything feels heavy, these foundations will hold you. Not because they make the heaviness disappear, but because they give you something solid to stand on so that you can find your way. You can build this. You can build it now, especially now, before you break. I know that even as you're listening to this, some part of you might be thinking, this sounds good, but can I actually do this? Yes, you can. Not without stumbling or forgetting or having days where you completely fall apart despite knowing all of this. You can do it. With messiness and imperfection, just do the small thing you can. You're going to have days where you suck at this. Days where you judge yourself harshly despite practicing awareness without judgment. You're going to have days where you can't make even the smallest shift because you're too depleted. Days where self-compassion feels impossible and the cruel voice wins. And you know what? Even on those days, especially on those days, you're still okay, because this isn't about getting it right. It's about building something that holds you, even when you're getting it wrong. The foundation we're building together doesn't require perfection. There is no such thing. It just requires consistency and persistence. It bends when you need it to bend. It holds you when you fall. It's still there on the days when you can't access it. There'll be days where you suck so badly that you'll wonder why you even bothered trying. And on those days, I want you to remember, that's still part of the practice. That's still you building your foundation. Because showing up imperfectly is still showing up. And it matters because you matter. You don't lose your progress because you had a hard day. Hear me when I say you don't undo the work because you forgot to be compassionate with yourself. You don't start over from zero every time you struggle. You just keep going. One breath, one moment, one small step. Because here's what I believe with everything in me. You are worth showing up for. Not someday when you figured it all out, not when you're handling everything better. Right now, in this moment, with all your imperfections and struggles and the heaviness you're carrying, you matter. You are enough, and you deserve a foundation that holds you through all of it. The good days and the days when everything goes to shit. So as we head into these darker months, whether it's literal winter or the metaphorical season of your life, I want you to know that you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to have it all figured out, and you don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to be willing to try, to practice, to build one small piece at a time. And on the days that you can't, that's okay. The foundation will be there when you're ready to come back to it. Before we close, I want to say something directly if you're listening and you're feeling like you're barely holding on. I see you. I see how hard you're trying. I see the weight you're carrying that nobody else can see. And I want you to know you are not broken or damaged. You're not failing. You're having a completely human response to truly difficult circumstances, and you're going to be okay. Not because everything is going to suddenly get easier, but because you're building something inside yourself that can hold you through whatever comes. One practice at a time, one small shift at a time, one moment of self-compassion at a time. That's how we do this. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with the people who came to mind when I said everything feels heavy. You can watch it on my YouTube channel, along with content that can support you in building your foundation. When you need a reminder that you're not alone in this. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every day, this comes straight from my heart to yours, with a reminder to be gentle with yourself, especially as we head into these darker months. Trust your rhythm. Honor your pace. And remember that even when you can't see it, you are building something solid. You're building a foundation that will hold you even when everything feels heavy, especially then. I'll see you next week.